You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. So a lot of you over the past week or so, maybe even the past few weeks, have asked about the possibility of Caleb Williams transferring to LSU. And I will tell you flatly that I've just sort of brushed it aside. If you're not familiar, Caleb Williams is a former composite, 247 composite 5-star out of Washington, D.C. In the class of 2021, he was a top 10 player overall. He was the best quarterback in the class. And when he was going through his recruiting process, he did visit LSU, and LSU was one of his finalists, and ultimately picked Oklahoma. Now, he was backing up Spencer Rattler this year. We all know what happened. Rattler was very erratic. Caleb Williams entered and ended up playing really well. Played in 11 games as a true freshman. Completed 64% of his passes, just a hair under 2,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, ran for over 400 yards and 6 scores. He is a dynamic dual-threat quarterback. That's not even a question. You're talking about a guy in Caleb Williams who was a 5-star, who stepped on campus as a freshman and was super dynamic at that position. When he entered the transfer portal and tweeted that he was leaving USC, that he was leaving Oklahoma, I quote tweeted him and said, "Enjoy Cali," because it makes the most sense, right? I mean, his coach, Lincoln Riley, leaves OU and goes to Southern Cal, and they were a beautiful marriage together for the type of offense that Lincoln Riley runs, stylistically what Caleb Williams is. It just makes an awful lot of sense that that's where he would end up. There's L.A., there's Hollywood, there's NIL opportunities, there's all that stuff. Oklahoma, meanwhile, said that they would not cancel his scholarship. Remember, they tweeted that they were open to recruiting him back on campus and would continue to recruit him back, and that door wasn't closed. Well, my assumption has always been that he's just going to go follow Lincoln Riley to USC. And there's circumstantial evidence to suggest that as well, with USC quarterback Jackson Dart entering the transfer portal as well. So if Jackson Dart is leaving USC, Lincoln Riley coming in, his former quarterback at OU entering the portal, all of the dominoes line up that say Caleb Williams is going to Southern Cal. Well, Dean Blevins, this is the first report I've seen from someone that I would consider credible. Dean Blevins is the sports director for KWTV in Oklahoma City, and he tweeted, told it's down to USC LSU for Caleb from a source with direct knowledge. So that has gotten an awful lot of play, that tweet, because it's down to those two. And I think it's allowed LSU fans to really gain an awful lot of hope that perhaps they could pull off a stunner if they were able to get Caleb Williams to Baton Rouge. There's a couple of things here. First of all, I still think the most obvious path is to USC, and I'm this is total speculation. I don't know Caleb Williams. I don't know anybody near him, but it just makes a lot of sense that he would be going to Southern Cal. Okay, that's number one. If you're LSU, would you take Caleb Williams? The answer is absolutely positively yes, not even a question. There's some that are going to go, what about Miles Brennan? What about Miles Brennan? Do you realize that in 4 years, Miles Brennan has started 3 football games? Caleb Williams, 1 year at Oklahoma, has more experience than Miles Brennan has. That's a fact. So, while yes, the Miles Brennan storyline has the potential to be really, really cool. I mean, one of those dude waited his turn through all the adversity and made the most of it. Matt Flynn, Stetson Bennett type stories. And that would be awesome if it played out that way. It may not. It may not. But if you have a chance to bring in Caleb Williams, who could be your starting quarterback for presumably the next 2 seasons at a very high level, that is a no-brainer. That's not even a question. You do it 100% of the time. And if that means Miles Brennan were to leave again, that just, okay, then Miles Brennan leaves. Or he stays and tries to compete for the job. Whatever. stylistically, who would suit better in Mike Denbrock's offense? When Denbrock was at Notre Dame, they had dual threat quarterbacks there with guys like Malik Zaire. You had guys that were that did more resemble from a skill set Caleb Williams. It's not to say it's exclusively what he did. I mean, you could look at Cincinnati, and Desmond Ridder certainly is a guy that can make plays with his feet as well as throwing the football and be dynamic and dual threat. Not necessarily Miles Brennan. It's not to say you can't succeed with a quarterback like Miles Brennan, but what are you selling? I think that's a very obvious point. It's also worth noting that Caleb Williams did consider LSU in his recruiting process a year ago. I mean, LSU was one of his finalists. I mean, he was strongly considering coming to Baton Rouge a year ago. He ended up in Oklahoma. It was a smart decision for him. I mean, look at what transpired. LSU was sub 500. They fired their coach. He went to OU, got to play as a true freshman for Lincoln Riley, had a great year. Now he's got other options. We'll see what happens with him. So, do you take Caleb Williams if you're LSU? Absolutely. I think, personally, LSU needs another quarterback either way. Because you have Miles Brennan, who we can be so optimistic about Miles Brennan. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying cast Miles Brennan to the side. I'm just saying if you have someone that's a potential Heisman candidate, transcendent type player, you make room for that guy 100% of the time. So, but if it's Brennan, I think LSU can win with Brennan. But if you have a chance to upgrade, you do it. That said, Brennan, Nussmeier, who has not started any games, he's played in 4, as we know, and then Walker Howard, who's coming in with an eye on redshirting. I mean, Jamie Howard has said that here on this show, that he would be okay with Walker redshirting because he understands the challenges of being a young quarterback and starting and going through adversity and how that can sometimes impact a young player or fans and things like that. I get it. If there's an opportunity for Walker to come and sit and learn and grow physically, developing mentally, emotionally, that's a positive to have a 5-star that's willing to wait. So I would love it if LSU added another quarterback. Get someone else in that room. How? I don't know. Transfer, smaller school. But if you have another option that can add depth at that position, you always take it. You can never have too many quarterbacks. LSU, each of the last 2 years, has used 3 quarterbacks. I mean, they went from Brennan to Finley to Max Johnson. Used 3 quarterbacks, including 2 freshmen in 2020. This past year, you were in the same situation. So, I mean, the third quarterback you used ended up being a wide receiver. But still, it illustrates and underscores the problems that you had. So, I hesitate to get too excited about the possibility because I don't think it's going to happen. Pete Thamel, who just joined ESPN, was on ESPN TV, mentioned the timetable for Caleb Williams' decision, said it's fluid, quote, "This is all nebulous. The Williams' first recruiting process when Caleb was in high school took a year and a half. Carl Williams' dad said, we've got to do it now in 2 weeks. So it could be as soon as the end of this week, but there's also schools on a quarter system where they could wait until March. They want to see how the NFL hires that could trickle down to college and shake out because they really want NFL training for Caleb Williams to prepare him for pro football. So he's considering a lot of things, very obviously here. And a decision may not come right now. It may wait through part of this semester. We'll see how it all transpires. But if you have the chance to add Caleb Williams, you absolutely do it. The people who have to be in full melt are Oklahoma fans because Spencer Rattler's now at South Carolina, and Caleb Williams, it appears, is not going back to Oklahoma. It's either going to be USC or LSU, and we'll see which it will be. I don't know. But when I start to think about the biggest signing day surprises that LSU has ever pulled off, I mean, that not only would that be on the short list, that might be at the top of the list. Like getting Dwayne Bowe in 2003, I mean, that's when the Bayou Bash was at the Atrium downtown. Took a day with a buddy. We went to that thing. We're sitting like eating some jambalaya or something like that on the ledge of that fountain. When they announced Dwayne Bowe, my buddy threw his hands in the air, threw his phone into that fountain. And that was before cell phones were waterproof. You got Jamarcus that day. I mean, we can go through the years of getting guys like Sam Montgomery There's a lot of guys that LSU maybe wasn't expecting to get that became really nice signing day surprises. I remember Jamarie Rasco was a nice signing day surprise. There's been a number of them throughout the years. This would, while not your traditional signing day, this would take the cake if LSU ends up landing Caleb Williams as a transfer from Oklahoma. This would be the most prominent feather in Brian Kelly's cap early in his tenure here at LSU if he's able to get that guy here. We'll cross that bridge and talk about how the other dominoes may fall if and when that may happen. But according to a news report out of Oklahoma City, it's down to LSU, USC, and we'll see if Brian Kelly can get in the mix there at the end, push this across the finish line, and maybe and probably get Caleb Williams to Baton Rouge. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.